A federal judge has ruled that President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles was unlawful, finding it ran afoul of the Posse Comitatus Act, that post-Civil War statute limiting the use of military forces for domestic law enforcement. In plain terms, soldiers aren't supposed to act like police inside the United States. The judge also warned that sending troops into additional cities at the president's direction risks edging toward a national police force, one with the commander-in-chief effectively at the helm. Not exactly a minor footnote. This decision lands as the White House has been signaling Chicago could be next for a security surge. The administration has been combing federal agencies for personnel to step up immigration enforcement, and the president has publicly doubled down on plans to clean up Chicago if necessary. The city isn't waiting around. Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order instructing local agencies to use every legal tool to constrain federal activity, requiring, for example, that federal officers follow local rules like wearing body cameras and banning face coverings, and directing city departments to file formal records requests to track what's happening on the ground. If you're feeling a little FOMO, you're not alone. Every hour seems to add a new twist. Here's the legal backdrop. The president has unique authority over the D.C. National Guard, but that doesn't extend to the Guard in states such as California or Illinois. In L.A., the deployment was described as a response to unrest linked to immigration enforcement actions, sparking immediate questions. Who authorized it? How long could troops stay? What tasks were they allowed to perform without sliding into law enforcement duties the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits? The court's answer today: the line was crossed. Chicago presents an even thornier scenario. Historically, the Guard has sometimes been sent to quell unrest. Results have ranged from stabilizing to tragic, as during some Vietnam-era protest responses. But using the Guard primarily to crack down on crime is a step beyond the usual playbook and raised legal concerns even before this ruling. Add tonight's decision, and the road ahead for any Guard role in Chicago looks narrower. What is the White House saying? As of now, officials are reviewing the ruling. Don't expect a wholesale retreat. Aides have discussed sending additional federal resources to several cities, including Chicago, Baltimore, and New York. Prior to the ruling, planning was underway for a surge of federal agents, with a naval facility outside Chicago eyed for logistics. At least 200 personnel from agencies such as IC, Border Patrol, ATF, and the DEA had been identified for rapid deployment, with more likely to follow. After tonight, the timing and the composition of that surge may change, but the intent to increase federal presence for immigration enforcement remains intact. One key distinction: the immigration crackdown versus any crime-focused Guard mission. Legal experts say the administration will probably appeal the LA decision. Meanwhile, DHS can still shift federal agents into Chicago to conduct immigration arrests, even without Guard backup. Optics aside, the machinery of federal enforcement can keep moving. In Los Angeles, for instance, Border Patrol conducted sweeps in places like Home Depot parking lots. A judge later flagged those actions as unlawful, yet agents continued operations for a time, even arriving in a rental truck. Court orders matter, but compliance doesn't always flip like a light switch. Critics of the White House plan argue the ruling reaffirms constitutional boundaries and that substituting Guard units for local police is costly, disruptive to civilian employers, and strains military readiness. They also note that Chicago is vastly larger than D.C. If targeted interventions in the capital proved limited, scaling that model up is a tall order. On immigration, attorneys caution that mass removals are not a lasting fix for a system Congress alone can overhaul. They point to economic ripple effects from international students to tourism as reasons to focus on legislative reform rather than sheer enforcement volume. And they stress a basic civics point: if the executive branch ignores a court order, that itself is unlawful. Hard to square law and order with dodging the judge. So, where does that leave us tonight? With three moving pieces you won't want to lose track of. First, the court says the LA Guard deployment crossed a legal red line. Second, Chicago's mayor is building legal guardrails to limit federal actions inside the city. Third, the administration is weighing an appeal while recalibrating how to surge federal agents without the Guard front and center. We'll be watching whether the crime-focused plan for Chicago gets paused, how immigration operations proceed, and whether this ruling nudges the White House toward a different strategy or prompts a courtroom rematch. Stay with us. The next steps could redefine how and when Washington puts boots, federal ones, on city streets.